Oh my goodness, we're back at it again today with another episode of Spooky Software. I'm super excited about today's topic. This is supposed to be, a short and sweet thing for almost anybody who's watching this channel. This might be a useful tip for you. Today we're going to be talking about building resumes online. Less so what goes in your resume or less so what makes a good resume, more about how you produce and maintain a resume and some kind of online presence. So in particular, I kind of ran into this a few years ago where I had this PDF version of my resume. And that was the thing that I would upload when I was applying for jobs, to various kinds of application processes. But then on top of that, I had a personal website, and these things, I always had to keep them in sync. And so as my work experience would change, as my interests would change, as I learned new skills or whatever, I had to keep these two things, in sync. And that's annoying. And so ultimately, what I decided on doing instead was to sort of make my resume more accessible. I would just build a resume in HTML on my personal website. That would be the thing I maintain, and just kind of go with that moving forward. But the problem with that approach is, of course, that's not easily submittable to a lot of application processes. Usually they want you to upload a file, in particular a PDF. So today we're going to be talking about how you can sort of handle that, how you can maintain one version, maybe your website of your PDF, of your resume, and then maybe automatically produce a PDF so that you can use this artifact should you ever decide to, apply for a new job or whatever. So let's hop into it. So here, here's my website. We're running a development version of my website where I have my resume up online. And so we're not going to talk too much about what you're supposed to put in your resume in terms of content or, what's important here or anything like this. You're more than welcome to use this resume, in terms of what it looks like. If you want to build your own, the source code is open and available on GitHub. I'll be sure to link it down in the description below. My entire website is open source, so this is just another part of it. Which is great. And it's nice because you can come to this website. It's highly accessible. It works on mobile. It's a little bit colored, right? Which is a little bit nicer than sort of the base PDF black and white kind of edition or whatever. And as I maintain my website, as I update this, maybe as I gain new skills or whatever, I can come in here and make a change to my website and add something. That's great. But this is not a PDF. So how do we turn this into a PDF? Well, it turns out that browsers have had this function for a while where actually, if you go into file and print, one of the options is save to PDF. Browsers have had this forever, and it's pretty nice. If you don't want to actually print it, you can just produce a PDF, right? So we're starting to get somewhere. This is already pretty useful. If you wanted to stop here, by the way, you probably could. If your resume sort of looked okay and you could just, anytime you wanted to, you could just come here and manually, print a PDF, and you had a PDF that you could submit to an application process. But there's a couple of problems here. So number one, my particular resume, the CSS that we're using here is not well optimized to fit on a page, right? Usually you want your PDF to be 1 page long, just, to keep it nice and terse and easy for someone who's, reviewing your resume to sort of parse and understand. There's a lot of blank space here. It's, spreading across a bunch of pages. The font size is probably way too large for this kind of format, etc. It also has some very specific website-y type stuff. So it has this link in here to download the PDF, which makes no sense inside the PDF because you're already viewing the PDF. So what can we do about this, right? So this is kind of where the ancient and somewhat forgotten, the ancient and venerable print media CSS queries can come in. So what do I mean by that? Well, it turns out that I don't know how long this has been in CSS, but it's forever because I don't remember a time when it didn't have this. It turns out that you can apply certain styles to target specific kind of media, right? And so actually by default, I guess, CSS sort of targets all media, which is to say it targets screens, monitors, if you will. It targets print, like when someone, prints it out or whatever. But you can limit it, right? And so here we can see an example of someone who wrote some inline CSS. They said, okay, everything between these two curly brackets, in particular this selector, only applies when someone is printing this. So this is really, really helpful. You can add this to any website, of course. If you have something like a recipe website or whatever, maybe what the recipe looks like when the person prints it is a little bit more attuned for that, so that they can kind of take the resume or take the recipe and go cook with it, right? You don't necessarily need things like, maybe in this case, this is just some random website that I pulled. You don't like need all of this stuff when the person prints this sort of header up here or anything like this, right? So you can see that like what this person is doing here is, for example, is they're hiding some headers and footers and navigations that are like not useful for when the person is printing it. Well, coming back to resumes, coming back to this sort of feature of browsers, it turns out that browsers will apply the print media styles when you print to PDF as well, right? And so we can utilize this to make our HTML resume more suited and more ready to go when someone creates a PDF out of it, right? And just for clarity, there are other ways you can do this. So this is sort of inline inside your CSS file. You can use one of these @media queries, but you can also use like a link tag, and as long as you put this media equals print on it, you'll happily get what you're looking for. I'm actually going to be using in this demo. So my website uses Tailwind CSS, which if you're not familiar, you can just think of it as a collection of sort of utility classes that you can use. So for instance, I wouldn't write this CSS. I would just apply the class hidden, which is just so happens to be Tailwind CSS's class for display none inside this. So, and in addition to that, Tailwind sort of has these modifiers where I can say, well, when I apply the print prefix to hidden, I only want that to apply when print styles are active. And I'll show you exactly what that means, but underneath the sheets, just understand that Tailwind CSS or whatever CSS framework you're using, whether you do it inline or use some off-the-shelf solution or whatever, they're all going to be, basically using this media query. To apply this is just a built-in browser function, right? So let's go take a look at this. So first thing I'm going to do just to demonstrate what I'm talking about is there's probably a lot of work that needs to be done here, and through the magic of video editing, I'm going to get it done like that, but we'll do at least one demonstration of this together, right? So what I'm going to do is this download PDF version, it doesn't make any sense. I'm going to replace this in the print version with a timestamp that says something like, this was automatically created from an HTML version on this day, and that will be a link to the actual online resume. So the idea is anybody who's reading this will know that like, hey, this is like a snapshot in time, and maybe the more up-to-date version is available depending on how old that timestamp is, right? So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just gonna pull up my text editor here, and if we go and look at the resume itself, you can see some HTML in here. So this is, my website uses React, but it doesn't matter. This is just plain HTML, and you can see here's this link that says, download the PDF version, and it's a link with the resume itself, and it's got a bunch of classes on it. But what I'm going to do is, again, all of these classes you see here are part of my CSS framework, which is Tailwind CSS, but some of these classes, like for instance, here's margin top one. This is applying some margin. You can see they have this like prefix that says, like in this case, it's MD. That is to say that only apply this margin on screen sizes that are MD or larger. In this case, it's like a screen width. But I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to apply print : hidden. And so the idea here is I'm saying when we're using print styles, when the browser is using the print styles, the print media, I want you to apply this class. In this case, the hidden class in CSS is just straight up display none, don't show it at all, right? And I have the opposite here, which is to say I've got a tag here that is by default hidden, but and it says something like this PDF was automatically generated with a timestamp and all that stuff. So I'm going to say when we're using print, I want you to actually override this hidden and show it. All right, so that should be enough to sort of demonstrate this. And you notice that if we just look at this, nothing has changed. And that makes sense because I'm not actually targeting this yet with print styles. You'll have to Google how to do this in your particular browser. I know that Chrome can do this as well, but in Firefox down here in the dev tools, there's this kind of like under the rules tab, you can actually sort of simulate using print styles. This is just an easy way to see what things will look like when a person uses print. And if I click this, you see that, oh, automatically this changes to this. That I'll show you this just by examining it. You can see that, because inline is applied because we're using the print : inline class, and because we're simulating the print styles, this class is applying. And again, under the sheets, if we go take a look at the source code of this, you can see that, Tailwind CSS is just using this media query, and all of these print : classes will only apply when the browser is targeting print styles, right? So ultimately, there's a lot of stuff that we probably would want to do. And again, I have this really nice, easy way to sort of simulate what things will look like very easily in my browser for when it's targeted for print. And again, at any time, I can come up here and I can say, hey, I want to print this. And you can see that now inside the PDF, this is what would be produced. If I were to save this as a PDF, it's got my nice timestamp information rather than a link to download the PDF the person is already looking at. And again, there's a lot more I can do here, and I'm just going to, instantly do this through the magic of video editing. I'm just going to try to use these print styles, apply a bunch of things, maybe make some of these font sizes smaller, maybe change the layout, etc., to make this look nice in the print format. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, we're back, and everything looks the same. I'm just going to go ahead and simulate the print styles, and you can see a lot of things have changed. I've adjusted a lot of font sizes. There's some things under the sheets for like layout and whatnot, and all this kind of like, it doesn't look that good on a screen, but that's okay because I'm not targeting screens here. So for instance, if I go up here and I look at what it would look like if I print to a PDF, this is a much more reasonable print version of my resume. You can see some of the font sizes fit nicer. It's actually on one page, et cetera, and it's good to go. This is something I could actually upload to an application process. All right, cool, fantastic. So there's one final note I want to throw in here is that not only do you have this browser capability to print something to a PDF, and you also have this neato way, this ancient and venerable way with these print styles to sort of add print specific or PDF specific styles, if you will. You also can automate this. So one of the things that happens is during the deployment process of my website, what actually happens is that I build the website as normal, including all these special print styles. And then I use an automated browser, just like you would if you were writing, for instance, like a Selenium or an E2E test. And I take basically a screenshot, or rather, I ask the Selenium browser to do the print to PDF function, producing a file on the hard disk. And then I build the website again using that produced artifact. So that's where I can get these links from. You can see here down in the bottom left, it says resume and then a hash.pdf. That's the file that would be downloaded. That hash is actually, sort of this version of the PDF, and it's produced automatically during deployment. I don't have to come here and like print to PDF and then copy the file or anything like this. It just automatically happens during my deployment process. I just want to show you that real quick because, again, this is all about, not maintaining two versions of your PDF or your resume, but on top of that, like making that maintenance of these two versions as easy as possible. So if we hop back over in here, let me just take a look here at, where would that be? That would be Here we go. So this is, I'm using Circle CI as my, CI/CD kind of pipeline or whatever. We're not going to get into that too deeply in this video, of course, but the idea is that at some point during the deployment process, we're producing all these static assets. We're producing the website that will actually be deployed, right? And you can see that part of that process is installing Chromium, right? And maybe some fonts. And then, of course, there's a build process where I produce a bunch of static assets and, all that good stuff. But in the middle here, we actually run a script, which is, in my case, called create PDF of resume, which is just a JavaScript script. And we'll take a look at that in just a moment. But the idea is that the output of this script is going to be a resume, it's just a file on disk, and then I'm going to build it again, and the second build is going to reference this PDF so that it's there's a link inside the sort of this is the final build. The final build will reference this PDF. So let's just take a look at this script real quick. Create PDF, and this is nothing like super special, right? This is only maybe 100 lines or so, and you can see that I'm using the Playwright ETE framework. So this might be something you would use for any kind of browser automation. Maybe if you're writing ETE tests or whatever. I am confident that basically any Selenium-based framework will be able to do this. You'll just have to look up your specific API to do it. So WebDriver IO, Playwright, Puppeteer, all of these are going to be able to do this in some fashion, right? And most of this thing is sort of spinning up a server so that the browser can actually interact with this and sort of take a PDF, take a screenshot, if you will. So here we go. We're loading that server, waiting for it to be available, all that stuff. And then at some point in the process, then I'm now using these Selenium APIs. I'm now using these Playwright APIs to launch Chromium. Go to a page. You can see I'm navigating to the resume page itself here in about/resume. And all this is just waiting for the resume to be ready so that we don't take a screenshot too early and it doesn't look half loaded or whatever. Making sure that for instance, my avatar picture is loaded, all that kind of stuff. And then finally, here's kind of the magic, which is this PDF API, which is just the call name inside Playwright. But again, in your specific framework, it might be slightly different. And this is what's actually doing the sort of print to PDF function. And I'm asking for it to take that file and write it to disk. And I'm going to do things with that later during that build process, right? And again, I've added some extra arguments here just so that the background color, this kind of kind of off-white kind of orange color here is part of the PDF. As well as I'm saying I only want the first page. This is more for sanity. I don't ever want to produce a PDF where the second page is maybe blank or whatever. Just the first page is what I want. And that's it. That's the whole process. And so at the end of the day, now when you go to my website, there's not only a link to, sort of the latest and greatest PDF. You can see this here. This is actually a build version, so you can't see anything here. Let's go to the real one. Maybe that would have hidden. Let's see here, spooky software. So you can see here's an actual PDF, right, that is available, and it tells you when it was generated. It turns out it was generated today because I was making some changes to my website today. And again, this nice, beautiful HTML version works in the browser, and I only have to maintain one version of my resume. I don't have to maintain multiple versions, which is the ultimate goal. So I hope today's video was useful. Very short, very pointed. I think that everybody who's watching this video is in the professional space has to deal with resumes at some point in their life. So hopefully this is useful to you. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, comments, feelings, whatever, put them in the comments below. I'll be sure to link the source code to my website so that you can kind of use it for inspiration. Feel free to use any code that's on my website, including and up to if you like the layout or the style of my resume, feel free to just copy and paste all that. I don't care at all. It's freely available. All right. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day.